Okay, so hopefully you've had the opportunity to look through the syllabus, get familiar with the course itself. Let's get into basically our theme for the semester. It's a Christian university. There's a spiritual aspect to the way that we learn and the things that we do here at this university. With that, there's a particular theme that goes throughout all of the classes that I teach, from 610 all the way until the final classes of the program. It starts with this idea: I am, therefore I must. What does that mean? You know, I believe that it's very, very difficult to become a great writer if you're not a great reader. And I think that the greatest story that's ever been told is the gospel. And so I love to look at Jesus. I love to learn from his life. I love to learn from the stories that have been told because they've been done so well. And so I was reading the Bible the other day, and I began to read in Luke chapter 4 that talked about Jesus as a teenager, as a young man, when his family went along on this trip to Jerusalem. It wasn't just his family, it was the whole town. When this kind of stuff happened, when they went to Jerusalem to make sacrifices, right? It was the entire city, it was the entire town that they came from. All of Nazareth packed up, camels, donkeys, whatever it was that they were traveling with, and their entire family, young and old, went to Jerusalem to make these sacrifices, right? So here's teenage Jesus, and he stays behind. His family's 2-3 days on the way back from doing what they had to do there. And all of a sudden, Mary looks at Joseph, and Joseph looks at Mary and says, "Where's Jesus?" "Well, I thought you had him." "No, I thought you had him." "No, he's not with you." So they go to family members. They ask them, "Have you seen Jesus?" Nobody's seen Jesus, so they go running back. A couple days into the trip now. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't have been very happy if I were them. But they finally find him sitting in the temple amongst the scholars, asking questions, and having them marvel at the wisdom that he had, even as a young man. And when they questioned him and they said, "Jesus, how could you do this to us? How could you do this?" He had a very specific answer that kind of floored me for such a young man. He says, "Don't you know that I must be about my Father's business?" It's very interesting, that phrase, "I must." Right? So I began to say, well, where did Jesus come up with this idea of things that he must do? And so I looked in John chapter 10, and it says this. He's talking to his disciples, and he says, "I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and my sheep know my voice. But therefore I must bring those that are not into the fold." What's a fold? It's simply a place of safety for the sheep. He's going out looking for those that are in danger of their salvation and every other kind of thing that Jesus came to establish kingdom authority for on this earth. And he said, "Listen, I am the good shepherd. Therefore, I have sheep to rescue. I have sheep to protect." And that's who he was. So he understood this phrase, "I am, therefore I must." What is your "I am"? It's what God's called you to do. It's who you are. It's what you were born for. There's a specific purpose that God created you for. What is that? What does that look like? How do you go about figuring that out? You've got to hear his voice. You've got to spend the time enough to ask the Lord to speak to you about exactly what it is that he's called you to do. What makes you feel the most complete? What wakes you up in the morning and makes you think about it, and what do you think about before you go to bed? It's typically what you were created for. But within that "I am," that thing that God's called you to do, what he's called you to do, right? There's this sense of "I must." What I must do in order to accomplish what it is that God created me to do on this earth. What are those things? The non-negotiables, right? The things you must do, that you have to do. If you're going to be a great writer, you have to write. You have to practice. You have to study other people's writing. Right? In the same sense, they're the things that you'll never do. They're your ethics. They're the things that you determine in your heart before you're ever questioned with whether or not you should do it. It's already purposed in your heart what you won't do and what you'll always do, right? Things that you'll never allow yourself to become a part of. And that's so important in journalism. because, man, once you break your ethics, it's very, very difficult to get them back. So what are those things? What are those things for you specifically? Your first assignment this semester is pretty simple. You're going to write about you. What is your I am? And what is your I must? Okay. Now listen, this is on Blackboard under assignments. You could check that out. And the instructions for where to post that, all of that is right there. All right. I'm not going to get into that on the video. But what I am going to get into is this. This is not an opportunity for you to tell me your salvation story. Okay. I want to hear it. That's great, but not in this assignment. It's not what I'm asking you for. What I'm asking you for is to spend some time seeking the Lord for yourself, hearing the Lord for yourself. What's He have to say to you about what you're called to do? What is it that you're called to do? I want you to tell me what you feel your I am is. Who are you? What are you called to do? And then beyond that, I want you to set some very specific goals, some measurable goals for this 8 weeks of what it is that you're going to do to get a step closer to that. If you're going to be a great writer, what are you going to do to get there? If you're going to learn to think differently, what are you going to challenge yourself to do every day in order to think differently? Tell me specific things. What are you going to do in order to accomplish what God's called you to do? That's I am. That's I must. All right? So take some time. Pray. Really think about it. There's no right or wrong answer. The easiest thing in the world to talk about, write about, is you. So do it. Take some time. Let me know. It gives me an opportunity to get to know you, how to pray for you, how to help you with what you're looking to do with your life. But at the same time, it's very important that you purpose in your heart to know what it is, so that you're not aimless in this profession and you're not aimless in life. What is it that God's called you to do? And how are you going to do it? Okay? If you have any questions, shoot me an email, waltsipe@regent.edu, as always. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Get that done. Get it in. Get the easy points. There's no way you lose it unless you don't do the assignment the way it's been asked for. So read the instructions. Get her done. I'll talk to you soon.